panelists who are going to be sharing their expertise with the community based upon the questions they had. We're going to stop sharp at 8:30 to respect everyone's time. We will be putting the questions on the website and with our best answer for that question. So we'll be moving right along to our panel right now, and we'll be collecting those cards in a moment. But I'll be introducing our panel right now. I'm going to ask that Strong Behaviors Health Child and Adolescent Psychiatrist Dr. Wallace please come. Strong Behavior Health's Educational Liaison, Richard Warden, please come forward. Fairport Police Chief, Sam Farina. I think we have Monroe County Sheriff's Lieutenant and SWAT Commander, Michael Wicks. I think I saw him out there about. Doug Niles, our Fairport Central School District Director of Student Services. And our principals, who I would like to take a moment, all of our principals hold this topic near and dear to them, and they understand that this is our priority. Representing our principals are Mr. Bob Clark, Fairport High School Principal. 9th grade Academy Principal, Pam Cerami. Middle School Principal, Mr. Dave Dunn. And we are fortunate to have Mrs. Erin Redder, who's going to be filling in for Mr. Green, who's not here tonight. She'll be representing the elementary. Sheriff, thank you. Lieutenant Wicks? Yes. Great.
Sorry to correct us.
Did we collect the questions? I'm going to have, thank you, Sheila McCarthy, our Director of Special Education, will be reading the questions. Sheila, why don't you come up here, I'll collect the cards and you can get yourself situated, I think. Again, Sheila McCarthy is our Director of Special Education. Thank you.
So the first question is, what signals will help me differentiate between normal adolescent angst and depression? My 11-and-a-half-year-old son reports feeling sad most of the time, but his affect in public is usually happy and confident. He says he can't handle life, but appears to do so very well. How can I distinguish between normal adolescent angst and depression?
Well, that's difficult. I mean, because having a depressed mood is not the same as having a major depression. And that's an important difference. So a major depression, you have all sorts of physical signs and all sorts of cognitive changes and stuff like that. So you see it affect kids in a very broad way. Whereas many kids have a depressed, get into a depressed mood once in a while, but they physically are fine and they don't distort their thinking a whole lot. And also, my cutoff is how impaired they are. So this parent is trying to struggle with, if they're impaired at home and they're not impaired at school, which I mean. So that's a little tricky, but basically, if they are, you kind of measure how severe they are. And then, I think anybody you're concerned that much about, you should at least have a conversation with your pediatrician and maybe follow along. There are some screening tools. Sometimes kids will disclose things in the screening tools that they won't disclose when you talk to them. So there's a few ways to try to sort that out. And if you're worried, you just have to follow it over time. There's no
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. The next question has to do with a suggestion for dealing with a 12-year-old who is an awfulizer. She talks about something that did not go well. I listen, then make a suggestion or point out something good. Then I hear a yeah, but. And thus goes back and forth to where I finally get to say, yep, struggling always sucks. and just give up trying to help. So how do I deal with the 12-year-old who is not wiser? Anyone?
Well, that is difficult. I think listening is the key, and we don't always have to have the answers. I find, at least in my own parenting skills, that sometimes it's okay to just sometimes say that you're not really sure, but being there for them and listening and kind of helping them see the positive in things, or helping them with some problem-solving strategies is probably the best way to support that. But listening is important, and knowing that you're there to listen, so that they feel like they can come to you, especially if they perceive it all to be very real to them. So it's just kind of talking through the feelings that might be associated with what's happening and just being understanding.
Next question. Our 9th grade daughter is having trouble feeling included with her peer group. What steps would you suggest we take?
I'll take this one. So, first of all, in Fairport, it's unique because we transitioned together from not just the 2 middle schools, but we also have a lot of students that move into our district in 9th grade. So I would say the theme continues to stay the same: listening, being approachable, helping sort of set the norms for your child, continuing to encourage, and then certainly reaching out to the schools. We often get contacted by parents or friends of friends saying that they're worried about students who maybe haven't found a group yet. We can be very tricky when it comes to introducing students to other students. We have a great peer ambassador program where we can help try to reach out in a gentle way. We also want to be sensitive that some students are just not as outgoing, so we want to try to find some good matches there. But I think the other piece would be maybe taking a look at our extracurricular activities, seeing if there's anything in the community. Fairport Parenting have great resources in the community for our teens. So trying to find some place in their lives where they feel comfortable and maybe can make some friends in other settings as well. It doesn't have to be just in school, just in English class. It can be really anywhere in their life. They're looking to have some contact with peers that are around their age. That's a suggestion.
Thanks, ma'am. Next question. How can you help a young child who can verbalize exactly how their brain is messing up and admits they don't know how to help themselves? And who thinks everyone will think they're weird if they get help? So how can you help a young child whose brain is telling them they're messing up?
I'll take this one as a parent, then maybe I'll jump in, Aaron. You know, I have a daughter that struggles with anxiety, and I think that one of the things that we've learned in trying to give her skills in order to deal with that is, again, going back to what Pam and everyone else has said, is to simply listen and to understand, perspective-wise. It's instead of saying that there is no stigma, trying to empathize and let her know we understand, that it's very awkward to hear your child say, certain things about themselves. They see themselves through other people's eyes, and they've shaped that perception. So I think it's to be very patient with them and to find opportunities to boost their confidence and to make sure that they feel like the door is open to speak to you.
Do you mind if I say something to that question? I work in the medical field, and maybe I'm loud enough. What I usually tell my kids is, your brain is just like any other organ. So your brain is messing up just like somebody's pancreas is messing up or their liver is messing up. It's just like any other organ. So if you feel that there's something going on, that it's chemically not working properly, like this child is mentioning, just explain to them it's all physiological. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's doctors, psychiatrists who treat the brain, just like there is internists or other physicians who treat other organs like your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys. So to fix that, we have to see a doctor. There's really shouldn't be a stigma. And also, another thing I always tell them, just remember that everybody who's famous or has lots of money has a shrink. So there's nothing wrong with doctors.
just to add to that, and I absolutely agree, and we talk a lot about in the elementary schools how we can normalize those feelings that kids have, and we know that kids struggle with reading and they struggle with math, and we provide support in those areas as well. But when kids are struggling with fitting in or how they feel about themselves, we provide those supports as well. And in the elementary world, kids come and go from the classrooms for all different reasons, and one of the things that we always tell kids is that, you know, everyone gets what they need in school. So, you know, you may leave for a little while to go and meet with a social worker or join a lunch bunch, but kids are coming and going throughout the school day, and that's very normal for kids to see kids coming in and out of the classrooms.
Thanks, Anna. The next question, what is the best way for a child to report when bullying occurs so the child is believed and doesn't feel adults do not believe him? So how do you report bullying in such a way that people believe the child?
We see a fair share of that in the middle school, and I think the best information is to just have the child report to it and a trusted adult. Hopefully it's a parent, maybe it's a teacher or counselor. Bullying is a lot about power, and it doesn't get reported, it doesn't get dealt with, and it just continues. So oftentimes we'll have parents that'll call and ask us not to do anything, but they want us to know about it. And my response is always, once I know about it, we have to do something about it. And, generally we can deal with bullying. We've got 33 cameras in our building. So we can easily come up with a scenario that we caught this on camera. So we can, protect the victim. And most times that name doesn't ever get mentioned in the situation. But I know that parents are afraid that if it gets reported, the bullying is going to get worse. In general, it's going to get worse if it doesn't get reported, because it's going to just continue. So hopefully your child can go to a trusted adult. If it's the parent first, feel free to reach out to the school. Our counselor, our teacher, our administrators are very, very highly trained in working with you, working with the situation to stop the bullying.
Thanks, Dave. The next question has to do with post-concussive syndrome. First wants to know if folks feel it's a valid diagnosis, and really talking about what's the best treatment plan for a 15-year-old young man who has sustained a concussion and is now experiencing extreme anxiety and panic attacks and becomes unable to advocate for himself to a point of being hospitalized and removed from a regular school building. So what is the best treatment plan for a student who suffered?
I wouldn't pretend to comment on the medical component of that, because I think that we have to take it face value what the student is sharing with regards to how they feel. I think that that's very important. But I think with regards to the second piece of that, and talking about the anxiety, I think school avoidance can happen for any number of reasons. And one of the concerns that we would have as the educators, as we try to form partnerships with families, is to understand that the anxiety only increases while they're out of school, because they feel the pressure of catching up. They get caught in a cycle of pressure as we try to catch them up and reintroduce them. And we went to a conference that was held by the Monroe County nurses a few years ago, and tried to discuss some of the strategies that we would use to reintroduce students into the building. And at times it takes baby steps. As a high school staff, I know we did this together at Minerva. I know middle schools will do the same. Sometimes it's having administrators, teachers, trusted adults meet students in the parking lot and taking baby steps into reintroducing to those environments and trying to guide them through that. But what I do know is that the longer they're out, the harder it is to reintroduce them back into that process. And fundamentally, I think we all agree that they need that in education. We also, from the school point of view, don't believe that tutoring is that education. We want them in school, and we want them to benefit from the connections that can be made here. So I think every kid in this space is a little different. We have to acknowledge the medical concerns, but we work collaboratively to try to take baby steps to reintroduce them into the environment. And I think we can be very successful when we do that.
Thanks, Bob. The next question, what services or supports do you offer for seniors who struggle with not knowing what they would like to do beyond high school? And the student is feeling very much alone in this particular problem. So how would you support seniors?
Pam just whispered a great suggestion. I should just pass the microphone back to Mr. Serafine in the back, but I think I've been along long enough to to know, some of the things that he would say. The nice thing about Fairport High School is we have a tremendous guidance library filled with resources and filled with our guidance department across the hallway. When we celebrate Decision Day, I know that can be a stressful time for some seniors, but the reality is we discuss all of the alternatives that students have, whether that be community, college, taking a gap year, exchange programs. There's so many things that our students have available to them. And Mr. Serafine and the entire guidance staff spend a lot of time organizing events. I think there's one tomorrow night, perhaps, where we talk about everything from financial aid to getting acquainted with the online systems that are in place, Naviance, and things like that. But I think it starts with conversations. It starts with conversations with their guidance counselor, who spent upwards of 3 years with them, getting to know them, finding out what their passions are, and then recommending a course of action for them.
I've just been told one more question. So, I guess I get to pick. The next question has to do with really the size of our district. And the question is there any research that suggests a smaller school size results in better social-emotional intelligence in teens? The question is Fairport too large? So is there any research about a smaller school size impacting social-emotional intelligence? Anyone?
I'll start with you, Jim. Well, it is interesting because it comes up all the time. We're working on the different schools. So you have Fairport and Pittsburgh, your next door neighbors, and one has a split high school, and 2 high schools, one has 1 high school. And so you balance these things. They're both unbelievably excellent school districts that have slightly different experiences. There's little things that happen, like more guys get to play on the basketball team because you have 2 teams instead of 1. But as far as I think in some ways the programs that you can offer are actually more here because of the volume of the population that you have, more languages and more art. So I think you kind of can split either way. As far as I think classroom size makes some difference, and I think whether the school feels like a community makes a pretty big difference. But I think you can do that. This is not too big of a school to do that. So I don't think there's any research to say you should shrink.
Yeah, I would just add slightly to that. We talk to our students about the challenge of Fairport High School is making such a big place feel small. And I think that's quite honestly what makes Fairport special. I graduated with a class of 42 students, and we had very few opportunities. And the thing that I'm extremely proud about Fairport High School and the size of the school that we have is 2 things. First of all, we have a very robust elective program that suits our students' interests, and I think that it's very easy for students to find a path in terms of their learning. And then the second component in terms of making connections amongst their peers is students that tend to struggle in their formative years in middle school and in 9th grade sometimes. I think there's always a place for them at Fairport High School, and they find their niche, they find their peer group, and it's kind of, from my vantage point, a pretty wonderful thing to see.
I just wanted to add that I'm not sure it's necessarily the fact that the size of the school, but it's what you do in the school. We've got about almost 800 students, 700 students, and about 120 staff, and that counts our professional staff, our secretaries, custodians, and every adult in our building, and I think I can speak for all the adults in Fairport, is focused on kids. So whether we're small schools or big schools, it's how we use our staff to meet the needs of our kids. We're thankful at Fairport that the Board of Education has got a very, very strong core release document, which really is anti-Common Core, anti-state testing, and it's really to make sure that we're taking care of our kids. And I do believe in all of our schools that is very clear that our focus is on our kids. And I honestly don't feel our kids feel the size because they feel the impact that every adult in each of our schools brings to the school every day.
So I absolutely agree with everything that is amazing about Fairport and the opportunities. And I would argue you wouldn't find a district in the area that would offer or try to go above and beyond like we do to help students develop their passions and find out who they are. But I do want to throw out there that as adults who work with students who do attend large schools, I don't think we can completely disregard the tendency to feel average that's something that, as we talk with kids, they often have a hard time feeling average. They don't feel like, and we saw that in one of the comments that Mrs. Tanway showed, that, you know, I'm not the best at anything. And in a district the size of Fairport, that can be discouraging. So the solution is really to just continue to expose our students to different things. Again, going back to that involvement, exposing them to different activities, helping them find their passions. So then they're focused more on doing what they love as opposed to how good they are compared to the guy sitting next to us. So just want to throw that up there, that we can't completely disregard that feeling of being average.
Thank you, and I think you can just boil that down to the priorities, and I'm very proud of our building principals and our district leaders. They understand the importance of connections and relationships, and I think that was well stated. Another, again, I want to emphasize partnerships. I'm going to give an opportunity for Police Chief Farina and Lieutenant Wicks to make a comment relative to our relationship, relative to you seeing your role in our schools, because there's frequent times when we spend communicating with principals, with myself, when situations occur outside of school. I really want to give them just a brief moment or two, and then I'm going to have Rich Warden wrap up some thoughts about our partnership with Strong Behavioral Health. So, Chief Farina.
Thank you very much. I just want to start by saying go Cubs. But I think it's important to the superintendent's point is we in the Fairport Police Department, we don't want to be known as law enforcement. We want to be known as a partner and a valuable resource to the schools, and we take that really to heart here for our police department. And with that being said, I want to focus our attention with an extremely incredible amount of communication that exists between myself and the superintendent on a daily basis, talking about security issues and law enforcement issues and anything that comes up that we readily talk about and want to resolve. And my charge to the superintendent is bring information to us where we can turn around and bring information back to the schools and let them handle the situations. We really want our folks to develop your children socially and give them the best opportunities. We don't want to bring them into the criminal justice system unnecessarily. So that's kind of our pitch, and we readily take that very seriously. And I'm very proud of the relationship that we have with one another, and I hope that it is seen at your end as well. It is our hope that we can ensure that your children are provided a safe environment that they're become accustomed to every day. And one thing I'll finish with is our officers are in the schools daily, and that is by design, not only for a sense of security, but also as a sense of mentorship, and also as a sense of being there to establish relationships so that they see law enforcement as a friendly component of the community and not just somebody that shows up at a 911 call or has a law enforcement function. So we routinely get into the schools. I'm sure your children have seen them. And that's our push for our department anyways, for the schools that are within the village of Fairport.
Thank you, Chief Farina. Lieutenant Wicks.
Yeah, obviously I agree with everything the chief is saying, and we've had a very similar relationship with all the districts in the area. One of the positive trends I think that we're seeing is there was a time that quite often family members, if their children are having problems at school, they would end up contacting law enforcement first, which I'm not saying not to contact us, but generally in many of these situations can be handled at the school level. And we are seeing a trend that generally is switching over to that, where the school is doing a very good job of dealing with any type of concerns that they are having there.
Were you able to hear me, or you need me to start over? So there's been a very positive trend with that. The schools are doing a fantastic job dealing with situations that they have here. But another trend that we're seeing as far as law enforcement goes is our ability to be able to appropriately handle some of the issues. Sticking with the mental health theme, this is something that we're moving forward and trying to provide as much
information and training to our deputies out on the road so we can appropriately assess what's going on, whether these are young children or young adults, and potentially have a different reaction when we're dealing with them, a more appropriate reaction. So we're very sensitive to children with special needs or any type of health issue, and we're trying to get our guys as well trained dealing with children in that manner. You have to turn it on.
I think I read on there. It is. Thank you. Again, in closing, a statement from Rich Warden, who is one of our partners who works with strong behavioral health and does a lot of consultation with our schools, and he's in the trenches with the staff on a regular basis.
First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge that Fairport is a model school. All eyes in Monroe County, all schools are looking at Fairport and what we're doing, and really they're wanting the same thing, because Fairport is meeting the students where they're at, they're meeting the families where they're at, and they're making sure to hear the voice and the concerns that the families are having. But I want to go back to the questions really quickly. If we summarize what it's saying, it's this concern of low self-esteem, low self-image, just overall this anxiety. Millions of things go wrong every single day. We have to capture that one thing that goes right and make sure that we reinforce that to the students and make sure they hear and know that, today was a great day. Millions of things go wrong, and every one of us can tell us what went wrong today, but tell me one thing that went right. And that's where it starts. It's changing our thought process and making sure that we focus on those positives and reinforce that and make sure the students and everyone hears that. But I want to make sure everyone knows that all you have to do is see the administrators, the mental health team here. We're in the school district 4 out of 5 days, so we're always accessible, wanting and willing to work with the families and parents, everyone. So thank you, and thank you for this partnership.
Yeah, I'm looking at this panel here, and I have, and I will continue, seek their advice, their counsel on the most strenuous circumstances. Your expertise is appreciated. Thank you. We have a nice round of applause. In closing, this night was about awareness. Again, awareness that the community sees and understands that we acknowledge this as the priority. The awareness that you are assured that we have the right resources and are equipped to support our students at all levels or at any place in their educational journey. It's an honor and privilege to work with your children. It's an honor and privilege to work with such an incredible group of leaders in the community and, of course, in the Fairport Central School District. Thank you, parents. We value your partnership. It makes a difference. Have a great evening.